Yeah.
We've done a bit of work. Do you know Gail Ems, the Olympic badminton player?
No, over yeah.
She does a lot of work in like a thing with athletes after sport. She does a lot of stuff with charities, and I think she's working with the guy from Villa, Lee Hendry. And
oh yeah.
there's a bit of a community of ex-athletes that are doing a support thing for guys that come out of sport.
Yeah.
Because she suffered massively with depression doing it, and obviously Frank Bruno famously has done, but a lot of athletes, Lee Hendry did, which we saw, a lot of athletes are going through it. So there's like a network of them that just support each other.
They're trying to do that. I know the PFA, so it's quite funny. It's a couple of weeks ago, I bumped into Gordon Taylor, the PFA. But that's in Preston, and he was coming out of Costa Coffee, and I thought, that's Gordon there, so I was speaking to him because he's finishes next year.
Oh, right.
As a PFA, because he wanted him out, because he's been the chairman for like 30-40 years.
Oh,
which is, he's been that for 30-40 years, but they don't put enough back into the game. Because I think his salary was something like 2.5 million a year for what, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the PFA is there as a support, but at the same time, do they do enough for players after? Because you're going from there to there. Yeah. That's basically what it is. Not unless you stay in the game as a coach and you're still in there. If you're not, then you're going to something different.
I always think as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I always think that you're a young kid with talent going through, so like 15, 16, 17, you've raised, and all of a sudden you're 30-year-old and it's done. So you've gone from youth to adulthood, and everything you've been told you're good at, well, that's it now, we're done. You're thrown out, and you're... I mean, the Olympic athletes is a prime example where they get told their skill, and them going to the Olympics keeps them clubs open, and the pressure must be incredible.
It's how you do it. It's like I said, I know they talk about mental health and stuff like that. That's how you deal with it. But I think with sport, a lot of the time is that, especially the old days, you just deal with it.
Yeah, of course.
You got told, whereas now you've got to be a little bit careful what you do with the kids and bringing them through. So it's not easy, but I think if you're in the sport, it's cutthroat. It is what it is. You know what I mean? There is a lot of support there now, but I think if you're going to be an athlete or sport, anything to do with sport, you've got to have some mental toughness. Not easy, but that's what makes you what you are.
How was it for you then, like coming out of? Because obviously when you retired, and you've obviously gone on to some great success with the agency. I mean, feel free to. Emery's filming this now, by the way. As well.
Honestly,
feel free to like put a plug in for the agency and let people know what you're doing. But how was it for you to go from like, well, that's that done then? Boom, what next?
I always thought towards the end of my career, you're always going to go to different things. I was in Nottingham, at a few places property-wise, which I'd got in the lace market. So I was going to get a restaurant, then got into the agency game, doing a little bit of advising for players, but more abroad than actually here. And then I've just more or less now, I mean, my main sort of job is doing infrastructure and construction with the Chinese.
Wow.
This is in different countries around the world, where you're building up different places there. So I'm still involved in football because it's always going to be in your life. But that's what I tend to do now, is I'm sort of like doing bits and pieces with government. So for me, it's completely different, but I've still got my hand in the football sort of thing.
Which has the most pressure?
Football, probably.
Yeah,
the other side's easy because you're not dealing with as many people, you're dealing with officials rather than a chain of people. In football, if you're an agent or an advisor, you've got every man in his dog. You've got the family who probably sometimes live in the dream through the kids. So you've got a lot of people around them who are not necessarily there for the player. They're more there for themselves. But that's not every case. That's just a lot of incidents I've seen before. Is the families are living through the kids, but it is what it is.
You still love football?
It's always going to be in my blood, in my blood. But you're always going to. If there's any good game comes on, I'm not partial to any sort of game, but you'll always watch football.
So then, as a football fan, the big question: can England win the Euros? Is it coming home, friends?
I hope so. I mean, listen, every time it comes up, you think we've got a chance, but I always think quarter-finals, semi-finals. Can we push on? Because that's the minimum you're looking at. But I mean, there's a lot of pressure on the England players.
Yeah.
To get to that point, and then to fall at that that final hurdle, it's frustrating and because all the best players are here. So I just think as time goes on, these next few years, I think we'll be thereabouts anyway. Just the fact that all the best players are playing here.
That team at the moment that Southgate's picked is pretty exciting, isn't it?
They're exciting, but it's performing on the world stage. Playing in the and the good thing is with the European League and the Champions League, English teams are there, so you're playing against the best players. So that will help, hopefully, finalised that we can win it. You know, it'd be nice to win it just for as an English fan or an English person. You know, what it's like with our history and the English fans. There's no better fans on the earth than the English fans.
And that's leads me into a nice question, because obviously you're very famous for playing at Nottingham Forest, who have a very rich history. Now, you signed for Forest in 1984, if I'm right, Lee, 4 years after winning the European Cup for the second time. Was there a huge legacy and a shadow of those back-to-back wins when you were going through as a young man?
It was perfect for me because I'd been to Forest as a young kid for a trial. They went to all the top clubs, Liverpool, Man United, Forest, and because of Forest history and the fact that they play young players, if they were good enough, I started at Blackburn Rovers, but Forest was always my first choice. If I became a pro, I would go there. So it worked out well for me. You know, I took a step back, went to Blackburn, learnt my trade a little bit there, and Forest came back in for me. So for me, that history, winning the cups and the players who were involved at the time was brilliant for me.